Welcome to the Week 9 edition of the 757 Preps Peninsula District Football Pick Show. This week we're broadcasting from Beefo Brady's in Newport News on Oyster Point Boulevard, where they have great food, a great family atmosphere, and great prices. So be sure to check them out. I'm here with my friend Jason Kidd as always. I'm Perez Thomas, and let's go ahead and hop into the recap of the Week 8 games, which was led off with a blockbuster between the Woodside Wolverines and the defending state champ Phoebus Phantoms, with Woodside coming up with the win heard around Virginia, 14-9 over the Phantoms. What can you say about that?
Woodside played a perfect football game. We didn't turn the ball over. Special teams came up big with some punts, pinning Phoebus at their 1 and 3 yard line on 2 different punts. Phoebus' average starting field position was the 14-yard line, which makes it tough.
Oh yeah, you got a long drive.
And the Woodside defense stopped the run. I mean, that's what you got to do to beat the Phantoms. They forced them to pass, and Anderson had 2 big interceptions, and Phoebus came back, won 14-9. Put on a show out there.
Woodside came back.
No, I'm sorry, Woodside.
Yeah, all I can say is Donnell Lewis. The kid is electric. He's so fast, I couldn't even keep up with him on one play. He made a great interception. I'm trying to follow with the video camera, and he's already blurred past me in the screen. It's a shame. The boy's blazing fast.
The Woodside Wolverines turned that interception into 7 points, and that 7 points won on the ball game.
That it did. All right, we'll go ahead and move into the Bethel-Warwick game, where Bethel put on a dominating performance against a struggling Warwick squad. They came out with a W 40-20 behind Frank Brown's stellar performance. I believe he had 4 TD passes.
Frank Brown accounted for all 6 Bethel touchdowns. He had 4 touchdown passes, 2 apiece to Willie Davis and Rashawn Proctor, and then he scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had I believe he was 12 for 23 passing, 158 yards, 4 touchdowns. Then he had added 49 more yards on the ground with 2 more touchdowns. Frank Brown put up a big performance.
Yeah, great all-around game for Frank. We'll go ahead and slide into the Gloucester-Denbigh game, which was still a very competitive game. Granted, it didn't have playoff implications, but it was a great matchup with Gloucester coming through with the home victory, 15-12.
Yeah, Ryan Harris, he really put the Dukes on his back and ran with it. He had 39 carries, a season high, of course, for 219 yards and scored both touchdowns. And put them Dukes, put his Dukes up.
All right, we'll move into the Hampton game versus Menchville, which was pure domination. Final score of 42-3. All I can say is Mike Smith found himself another running back in sophomore Marshawn Williams.
Yeah, I would say so. Williams had 97 yards on 12 carries and 5 touchdowns. The past 2 weeks he's had 243 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns, and it's freed up Cogsdale and Bellamy on the defensive side of the ball, allowing them to focus more on defense, and it's shown in the numbers. Hampton has not given up a touchdown in 13 quarters now.
Yeah, now that Bellamy and Cogsdale have fresher legs, that defense is even more potent. Not to mention they've got a pretty solid secondary back there as well.
I tell you what, Mike Smith has put the pieces to the puzzle together with this Hampton team. They started off 1-2. Now they have won their last 5 straight, as they head into a showdown with Kecoughtan this week.
Definitely. And speaking of Kecoughtan, we'll go ahead and slide into the Kecoughtan Heritage game. Kecoughtan came out with a victory 26-6 against the scrappy Heritage bunch. Didn't want to let them run away with it too much, made it competitive, but just didn't have enough in the long run.
Yeah, Terrence Ricks put up a big show for the Warriors. He had an interception return for 36 yards to seal the deal on the victory. He also pulled in a 27-yard grab from freshman Nick Carrera, put the Warriors up early. I'll tell you what, they're coming on strong. They're 1 playoff spot behind Bayside, 1.84 points behind Bayside, leading into this Division 6 playoff race.
Yeah, they've got a tough game this week against Hampton, but if they find a way to pull it off, they can probably slide in front of Bayside, depending on what happens out there in the Beach District.
I would definitely agree.
All right, well, that does the recap for the Week 8 games. We'll go ahead and start into the Week 9 games, beginning with the Phoebus Phantoms, who are probably going to be a little bit upset, to say the least, coming off their first loss in 3 years. I can only imagine what's going through their heads right now.
Well, Phoebus is a strong team. They won the past 3 state titles. I look for them to regroup, take that loss as a lesson learned, brush it off their shoulder, and tear into these Gloucester Dukes. I feel sorry for the Dukes this week. I see Phoebus winning big, 56-0.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said 100%, all the way down to the score, and there was no cheating this week. I'm going 56-0. Gloucester's got to make a long trip to Darling, and I think it's going to be a long trip home. We'll go ahead and slide into the other Thursday night game over there at Todd Stadium between the Heritage Hurricanes, that up-and-coming bunch. Like we've said before, they've yet to get the key victories, but they're still learning the keys to playing, quality football, contending with teams. They're playing a struggling bunch in the Warwick Raiders, who really, really need a victory to, hold on to their spot. It looks like they're safe at the moment, but if they let Heritage take this W from them, they could be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Warwick is struggling. They've lost the past 2 games. Combined score 40, giving an 89-20 past 2 games. I look for Warwick to get on track this week. Juan Jackson has to get his kids together, and they got to rally around their coach. I see him pulling out a 23-13 win over the Heritage Hurricanes.
I agree 100%. I think he's got to get that defensive unit back to playing the football they were playing early in the year. The offense, it seems like they don't have an identity as of yet. One week, they run the ball well, and then the next week they pass it well. It seems like they can't get it all together. They can't figure out what they want to do and what their identity is. But this week, I think they get it all together. I think they beat Heritage 35-14. I think the defense steps up, makes it a little tougher on Abdullah, and I think they come out with a W.
I think that was a perfect analysis, Brett.
Appreciate it. Now we'll go ahead and move into the high and mighty right now, the Woodside Wolverines, who are probably feeling on top of the world. They impressed me. The past couple games, they're a couple closer scores than I would imagine out of Woodside, but I tell you what, they impressed me this past week against Phoebus. They had a game plan, they stuck to the game plan, and they executed well. I think this week they've got Denbigh Friday night at Todd. I don't see much of a ball game.
Woodside reminds me a lot of the Auburn Tigers last year, led by Cam Newton. They played a bunch of close games early on in the season, and then they went on to win a national title. Woodside, they played 4 or 5 close games against decided by 7 points or less this season, and they come out on top every game. I like Woodside in this one, 52-13. I think the offense is going to put up big numbers this week against a reeling Denbigh defense. I like Woodside big.
Yeah, I'm going Woodside 42-0. Denby's got a good offense, but they have no defense at the moment. Woodside's D looks spectacular right now. Donnell Lewis, I look for him to have a couple touchdown passes, probably a pick or 2. All right, we'll go ahead and move into the Saturday game at 5 o'clock at Todd Stadium between the Bethel Bruins, who are coming in feeling good after a W against Warwick, and they're going against the Menchville Monarchs, who have just been on a downhill slide for probably the last 4 weeks or so now. What do you got to say about that one?
I like Frank Brown and the Bruins to do big things. I see Bethel winning this one 55-3. I think Dylan Christopher will account for the Monarchs with a field goal from probably 40-plus yards out.
Yeah, I'm going with Bethel. Let me go out on a limb and say next week's PD Player of the Week is going to be Frank Brown, maybe. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm going Bethel 42-0. Only reason they don't run it up worse, they'll probably pull the starters early. And then that brings us in to this week's game of the week between 2 Hampton schools. the Hampton Crabbers and the Kecoughtan Warriors, and that one's Friday night at Darling Stadium.
Well, right now the playoffs were to start. Hampton would get the number 2 seed in Division 5, while Kecoughtan will be on the outside looking in. They're clinging to a fight. They got to win this game. This is a must-win game. Well, their playoffs started last week.
Yeah, they did.
So, and if you look at these two teams, they're equally matched. They have good running games, good defenses, but there's one difference, and that comes at the quarterback position. Jeremy Eubank is a savvy leader. He's been at this place before. He's undefeated as a starter right now. So I'm going with the Crabbers and Eubank, 20-13. I think it's going to be a close game. Devin Claiborne right now for the Kecoughtan Warriors is the most impressive defensive player and most valuable defensive player that has stepped foot on the field this year.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it was a tight race between him and Boombox Loss from Phoebus, but I do agree 100%.
Phenomenal as well.
Yes. Phenomenal defensive talent. I agree with everything you stated. Pretty balanced matchup. Running games are about equal. Defenses are both extremely tough, but again, it falls back on that quarterback. And I'm going to agree with Mr. Kidd here, and I'm going to go with Hampton in this one, 28-21. I'm thinking a late touchdown, maybe a defensive stand, and that's enough to pull out the victory against a hungry Kecoughtan bunch.
They are hungry.
So, like I said, the Crabbers are hot right now, but I think that, they're ready for that playoff push, and I think they're biting at the bit to get to those Phoebus Phantoms in the last week of the year.
Yeah, that's going to be a good matchup right there.
Well, that wraps up the Week 9 edition of the Peninsula District Picks the Week show. As always, you should check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/757preps. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/757preps. And always be sure to check out the website, 757preps.com. Highlights, pictures. I know I need to upload some of the past few games. I'm a little behind, forgive me, but I've got plenty of pictures to upload. Also have stories and all that good stuff, stats and scores. Also be sure to check us on Twitter at 757preps. We try and keep up with all the games as they're going on. Sometimes we're a step behind, sometimes we're a step ahead. But again, we appreciate all your support. And again, we'd like to thank Beefo Brady's for letting us film the show here this week. For Perez Thomas and Jason Kidd,
I have one thing to add.
what's that?
Well, last week I went 2-3 after winning 15 straight games. I was due for a bad week, and I went against Woodside, and they came out strong with a big win. But I'm picking Phoebus every week. I went against the Bruins. Thought the Raiders had something for them, and the Bruins dug in. And then I picked Denbigh Patriots to get their first win of the season against Gloucester, and Gloucester they had a locomotive on, and they rode on his back, and he took them for another win. So hopefully this week I can turn things around.
Yeah, I gamed the game. That's all I could say. I had to get back into it.
All right, well, fans, we'll see you next week at 757preps.com. Be sure to check us out.
Have a good one.